Miss Katindoy, bangin ka please tell Miss Katindoy to just join back in. Nakikiyahan pag recording. So in accordance with the Data Privacy Act, let me inform you that this Google Meet session is being recorded. If you are against the recording, you can just leave this Google Meet session. I will I will just be starting over kadali just for the sake of those who will not be able to attend. So these are the properties of real numbers. So the first property, this is very common. This is the associative property of real numbers with respect to addition. The second property is the commutativity property of real numbers with respect to addition. So if you add two numbers, a plus b, then that is the same value as b plus a. The third property is the existence of an identity element. In this case, it is a 0. So with respect to addition, the identity element is 0 because when we add any real number, a, to the identity element 0, so the result is still equal to a. The fourth property is the existence of an inverse element. So for any real number, we will be able to find the inverse, which will be denoting by negative a, because when we add that real number plus its inverse, so a plus negative a, the result is the identity element. So in this case, since this is addition, so the identity element is 0. So for multiplication, we have the same thing. So we have associativity with respect to multiplication. So A multiplied to the product of B times C is the same as the product of A times B multiplied to C. And then the commutativity property of multiplication, or with respect to multiplication, if you multiply A times B, you will have the same result as B times A. Number 7, this is the existence of the identity element with respect to multiplication. So the identity element, of course, is 1 because if you multiply any real number to 1, then the result is the real number itself. And then we have the inverse element of the real numbers with respect to multiplication. So we denote this as a to the power negative 1, or a inverse. So we know that a inverse, this is simply 1 over a, the reciprocal of a. So we see that a multiplied by its inverse, that is equal to 1. So basically a times 1 over a is equal to 1. And then we have the distributivity property. So if you multiply a to the sum of b plus c, then you will be getting a times b plus a times c. And then from those properties, we can see other properties or other theorems for real numbers. So you will see that if you add a plus c, or if you have the equation a plus c and this is equal to b plus c, then we can find that a is actually equal to b. So we want to have a proof for this. Let me magsulat. The proof will be your problem set. So you will have to find the proof for number 1. Basically, re-research lang niyo damo ito. You have the textbook available. I think the proof is there. You can also find online the proof for this. So number 2, we also see that if we have a times 0, this is always equal to 0. Masiring kamo ininhiya na kay maaram naman gud kita inin sir na kung i-multiply naton iton a nga iton 0 equal man gud iton niya to 0. So we need to prove that. How do we prove that? We will be using these properties. Ini iton aton pagbabasaran. Pininlahiran na siyam. So amo iton gagamiton, amo iton imo magiging basis of your reason why we are able to assert that a times 0 is equal to 0. But again, you can find the proof for these ngadto hakuan. Ngadto itong mga ngatong textbook nga on the internet. And then you will also find ininhira, mag-aram kita ininhira na may da ka nga ni negative, i-multiply ni mo in positive. So ininhiya, this is or this can be any number. So the negative of A times B is the same as negative AB. Then the negative of A times the negative of B, or the inverse, additive inverse of each, it will be equal to A times B. And then we will see that A times C is equal to B times C. Given that C is not equal to 0, then we will have A is equal to B. Let's try first. Let's try making the proof for number 1. Let me have a Jamboard open. Okay, so we have here. So nato natukuan if, so we had if A plus C is equal to B plus C, then we find that A is actually equal to B. So how do we write the proof? So we will assume, I mean in here, this is the hypothesis part, and then this is the conclusion part. So we will be assuming the hypothesis. So we will let A plus C be equal to B plus C. So this time we will be introducing the inverse of C. So we will add negative C to both sides of the equation. Remember, inequality, if you have equality, whatever you do to the left side of the equation, you also do to the right side of the equation. So I added negative C, so I also add negative C to the right side. Now, negative C is the additive inverse of C. So that C plus negative C, this is equal to 0. And then this one also here, this is equal to 0. And of course, A plus 0 is equal to A. And we have B plus 0, that's also equal to B. So we were able to reach the conclusion that A is equal to B if A plus C is equal to B plus C. So sugad ini ito magiging proof ito other na mga theorems, other na mga properties. So basically in this one, I just invoke the existence of the additive inverse, and then the identity also, existence of the identity, such that if I add the identity to any real number, then it will be equal to that real number itself. But again, you will always find these proofs on the internet. Let me go back to the PowerPoint. Okay. So we also have number 6 here. The negative of negative A is equal to A. And then 1 over negative A is equal to negative 1 over A. And then the reciprocal of the reciprocal is the number itself. That's number 8 in here. So this is very important when we go to complex fractions. So the reciprocal of the reciprocal is equal to the number itself. And we also have the negative of A plus the negative of B, that is equal to negative of A plus B. And finally, 1 over A times 1 over B is equal to 1 over A times B. So basically, your first problem set is to find the proofs of number 2 to number 10. I already gave you proof for number 1. Itong proof, sugad-sugad na itong dalaga nito niya. Okay. Next, we have order structure. With order structure, the only inequality that we are going to admit here is less than or equal to. Waray kita nga hi greater than or equal to. May naka nga greater than or equal to, ato nito yung i-arrange para maging less than or equal to gyap iton iya itsura. Again ha, waray kita dapat greater than. If you will see here, either may nakita strictly less than or less than or equal to, pero waray kita greater than or equal to. Okay, so the first one, we have either A is less than or equal to B or B is less than or equal to A. Tapos, connected in at number 2 na if ever mahitabo man na both A is less than or equal to B and B is less than or equal to A, it kasi regular to niya, then A must be equal to B. Pero dire kita pwede na A is less than B and at the same time, B is less than A. So this cannot happen at all. So because wari man din hihiyaan ko an option na or equal to, so imposible mahitabo na A is less than B and B is less than A at the same time. Okay, so we go to number 3. If A is less than B and B, or A is less than or equal to B and B is less than or equal to C, then A must be less than or equal to C. This is called the transitivity property of the order structure. Adihiya, and number 1 and 2, this is the trichotomy. Tawag niya trichotomy. So basically, usalay pwedeng mahitabo. Either A is less than B, di rin niya magiging and, B is less than A, or A is equal to B. So usala inin haera na tulo, iton pwede mahitabo at the same time. So di rin hira pwede magdurungan na true. Usala iton true haera na tulo at any given point. So number 3, again, this is called the transitivity property. So if A is less than or equal to B and B is less than or equal to C, then A is less than or equal to C. Very classic example, if you have -1, this is less than or equal to 0, and 0 is less than or equal to 2. So of course, we see that -1 is less than or equal to 2. So that is very easy to verify. Next, we have if A is less than or equal to B, then we will see na kung mag-add nga ni kita in any real number, then the order is preserved. So, inihi C, wara ini magyakan kung positive ba inihiya or negative, pwede niya 0. So, if mag-add nga ni kita, the order is preserved. So, for example, if we see that -3 is less than or equal to 2. So if you add, bisa negative it ibig add, so -5, this is still, sorry. Ano pagpon ini? Erase. Sana na. Plus -5. So -3 plus -5, that is -8. This is less than or equal to 2 plus -5, that's -3. So the order is being preserved. You added a C, which is negative, but still, nare-retain natin itong iya less than or equal to ness. Number 5, if A is less than or equal to B, and yan na, may nakita 0 is less than or equal to C. Kasi rigunin hiya, either C is 0 or positive. So if C is 0 or positive, then we will be able to have the order na AC is less than or equal to BC. So again, dapat lainin hiya, C is positive or 0. So again, let's have still the same, -3 and 2. So -3 less than or equal to 2. If I have 0, so -3 times 0 is less than or equal to 2 times 0, you will have your 0 is less than or equal to 0. This is true because again, iton aton order, the relationship here is less than or equal to. If you remember, ako nagkaputan iyo fundamental concepts of mathematics, when you have the or, so pwede o sa laha ira itong tinuod. Either he less than let tinuod or he greater than let itong tinuod. He less than let itong tinuod or he equal itong tinuod. So, may naman kita equal to, so we are admitting 0 is equal to 0. And if we have a positive number, 3, if we have times 5 less than or equal to 2 times 5, so this will be negative 15. This is less than or equal to 10. So we still have the structure preserved. May dalagap kita less than or equal to. Next, consequences of the order structure of R. So if A is less than B, then negative B is less than or equal to negative A. So if you remember your algebra, high school algebra, if you have an inequality tapos ma-multiply ka nga nihin negative, ang ginbubuhat adto iya, ano na may nakita pananglitan negative 3 less than or equal to 2. So mag-multiply kita negative, multiply ang tayo niya negative 1. So it might tabat to natong ginbubuhat magiging 3 greater than or equal to negative 2. Pero in here again, what we want is to preserve the structure na less than or equal to. So instead of writing this, itatula kay may himulahiya na magiging 2 is or negative 2 is less than or equal to 3. So nga di iton atong pagsurat. Ibabalyutaan position and binganhan A. Number 2, if A is less than or equal to B and if C is less than or equal to 0, then BC is less than or equal to AC. So, baliktad na ninhiya han aton number 5. So, this time our C is less than or equal to 0. So, we see this. So, we have that. Amo na ninhiya. We have BC is less than or equal to AC. Basically, in here na negative 1, ito negative 1, this is less than, negative 1 is less than or equal to 0. So, abo na init aton C, ini na negative 1. And you can also check this if you have other values for your C. So, if you have negative 3, so if you have negative 3 is less than or equal to 2, or let's use negative 4, multiply that by negative 4, then what we will be able to observe is that negative 8 is less than or equal to positive 12. So may nakita ini. Next, if A is positive and B is positive, then A times B is also positive. So, as regulate number 3, positive times positive is equal to positive. Number 4, it shows that A squared is always greater than or equal to 0, no matter if your A is positive or negative. So we know na all positive numbers, all squares, all perfect squares are positive. That's why nga na ito nagtikang na an imaginary number because you cannot get the square root of a negative number. You cannot get the square root of any negative number because all perfect squares are positive. And then number 5, 0 is less than 1. And in here, klaro, galindoro maram kita na 0 is less than 1. But this can actually be proven by using the above na mga theorems. So you will also look for the proofs for papataw na itong proof, ininlahiyan ng mga consequences. So 1 to 7, you will look for the proofs of this as well. Number 6, if A is positive, then the inverse of A, this is with respect to multiplication. So meaning an reciprocal of A is also positive. So if A is positive, then the reciprocal of A is also positive. And then we have this relation. If both A and B are positive, wherein A is less than B, then we will find that their reciprocals are also positive, but the reciprocal of B is less than or equal to the reciprocal of A. So we can see here, let's have an example. 0 is less than 2, less than or equal to 2, less than or equal to 5. But you will see that mababali na 1/5 is actually less than or equal to 1/2. So 1/5, this is 0.2. Itong 1/2 is 0.5. So less than talaga yun here. So we will be able to establish that when we get the reciprocals, iton order mag-iiba. Guruguti iton reciprocal hiton durdako na number. So basically here durdako hibi kaysa kan A, but when we get the reciprocal, guruguti it reciprocal ni B kaysa hit reciprocal ni A. So those are the consequences of the order structure of R. Then we have the definition of an absolute value. So absolute value of A, if A is positive, then it's just equal to A. And if A is negative, then that is equal to the negative of A. So of course, the absolute value of 3 is equal to 3. The absolute value of negative 4 is equal to the negative of negative 4, which is just positive 4. So basically, at kinbubuhat lang in hiya, kung if you remember again your algebra, so iton absolute value ginkukuha tala iton iya positive na value kumbaga. Gintatanggal ta ito negative. So kung may dangay negative, tanggal ito niya, and that is your absolute value. So we have here a theorem. So the absolute value of A is greater than or equal to 0. So always in here greater than or equal to 0. And if you multiply two numbers and then get their absolute value, it's just like getting the absolute value of the first times the absolute value of the second. So if you have 2 times negative 3, this is equal to the absolute value of 2 times negative 3. This is negative 6. And this is equal to 6. Tapos, the same ito't may tabo kung aton pagkukuha untaan na iton absolute value of 2 and multiply to the absolute value of negative 3. So this is equal to 2. Adi here, this is equal to positive 3. And this is still equal to 6. So for multiplication, pwede tala pagbulag-bulagon iton era mga absolute values. However, when we go to addition, it's different. So if you have A plus B, this will only be less than or equal to the absolute value of A plus the absolute value of B. So let's first look at the positive side. So what if pares sila positive? So let's say we have 3 plus 2. This is less than or equal to positive 3, absolute value of positive 3, absolute value of 2, which is equal to 5. In here will be absolute value of 5. At here magiging 3 plus 2. So magiging 5, Pare sila equal. Now let's have both negative. So what if we have negative 4 plus negative 8? Is this less than or equal to absolute value of negative 4 plus negative 8? So this one, we will have negative 12. Nga dihiya, magiging absolute value of 4. This just 4 plus 8. Then this one, absolute value of negative 12 is positive 12. Nga diliwat hiya, magiging 12. But what if 1 is positive and 1 is negative? So let's say we have negative 2 plus 5. Is ano iton mahitabo? So this one will be negative 2 plus 5. Nga di, negative 2 plus 5, this is positive 3. Tapos nga di hiya, if mahitabo, this one will become 2. Adi magiging 5. Absolute value of 3 is 3. Then this one is 7. So yan na, nakita ta na ang importansyahan less than or equal to. So magiging less good in hiya if one of them is positive, the other is negative. Parehas nga nila positive, parehas nila negative, then nagiging equal la ito hiya. But the story changes if one is positive and the other is negative. So in here na triangle inequality theorem, I also need you to look for the proof of this. Tapos, you will write this in, i-research mala niyo itong mga proof, so pwede la soft copy itong iyo submit later on. So again, what you need to look for, consequences of the properties of real numbers 2 up to 10, tapos consequences of the order structure, so 1 to 7, and the triangle inequality theorem. So you need to look for the proof of all of these. Tapos, try to sort of memorize them because amo lagi apiton magawas nga dahiton aton magiging quiz. Kung face-to-face untayin hiya, so i-share ko, isusurat ko usually ha board iton kuan, iton proof, iton na mga kuan, na mga pagiton adtuhira na mga theorems, mga consequences, tapos may memorize on, tapos pagkada hiton quiz ilal tigsusurat. But this time usually man kay kun ighatag ko na iton proof daan, madali na laha iyo kay nga dahiton pag quiz madali man la pagkita otro nga dahiton kuan hiton notes, hiton copy niyo iton proof, tas isusurat lang ahaw niyo iton proof nga dahiton pag quiz. So para may good effort sa iyo part, hikamot magbibiling hiton mga proof ni Nera, tapos be familiar with them para pag abot iton quiz madali ma-answeran iton quiz, madali pagsurat iton proof. Okay, so mula adto actually iton aton ko ang discussion for the first lesson in real analysis. Ito na aton next lesson makatukitahan limits. I think na ngadto niyo advanced calculus nag-prove na kamuhan limits sa mga epsilon delta. Nagamit ba kamod to? Or nag-discuss? Anyone? Can you confirm if nag-prove kamuhan limit of a function using the epsilon delta definition? Hello? Hello, may tao?
Sir, very sure.
Sir, amo tan may triangle.
And dire anay hamad balik kita jump board. One moment. Diba, master ka mo, find the limit of 2x plus 3 as x approaches to 0. Tapos, we know that this is equal to, magiging 0 man lang yan, magiging 3. So, prove that the limit of 2x plus 3 as x approaches 0 is equal to 3. So, ano yung pag-prove? Master na ka mo, let epsilon be greater than 0. Then, there exists delta greater than 0 such that if the absolute value of 2x plus 3 minus 3 is less than epsilon, then ang sugat din niya ba? Nagsugat kami niyan, iyo advanced calculus. Epsilon, delta.
Waray, sir.
Wait. Sige. So, amit aton bubuhaton sunod, aton niya hihimuan ginaano pag-prove iton mga, so datihan calculus we are finding the limits of functions, so this time we are going to prove the limits of functions. So maglilimit lang kitahin mga kuan linear and quadratic functions. I will be giving you the definitions or an definition and limit because that will be the basis of proving the limits. Sige, but for the lesson for today, may daka mo questions or clarifications? Waray questions, waray clarifications?
Sir, ang pag-prove, sir, pwede pa isurat na po paper.
Pwede gyapon igsulat ta paper tas pipicturean ta sa upload. Bali ngadto ha Google Classroom maghihimo ko yung assignment ngadto kamo ma-submit. Pwede
Okay.
soft copy, pwede gyapon sinurat tas pipicturean. Pero if
Ah.
possible, pag practice na kamo na gin-encode para mahiara kamo para iton kan yung thesis kay mag-encode man gud talaga kamo yung thesis para hiara na kamo pag suratan equations sa Microsoft Word.
Sige po, sir. Thank you.
Soft copy na
Cellphone
lang.
lat gamit. sir.
Ano to?
Cellphone lat gamit.
Pag hintay pagkuan, pag encode ha baka to computeran. So buhat research daan nga dahakuan nga dito yung mga cellphone, pan screenshot ta, tapos pakadto computeran i-encode. Para practice na kamo kay again lagi iton EU thesis encoded man gud talaga ito tanan para diri ka magkukuri na nga dayton kan EU thesis pag i-encode hin mga mathematical equations para mahiaran na kamo aanhon.
Ang
Okay,
deadline po, sir, sa naman po.
Paihaon tahiya kay next week magklaklase kita otro amatuya na kanan and limits. Tapos next week balit last week itong September diri ko kang mamimit kay may dako engagement ha DSWD mapaampun na ka era. So bangin pagka bali iton hiya na last week it September amo iton iyo pagtrabaho, so first week iton October iton magiging deadline.
Okay po, sir. Pero pwede po magbasa po early.
Of course.
Okay, sige po.
Sige. So hulatan na lang na i-open ko an assignment. Later siguro go-open ko na itong assignment. Anyway, so ngadton Google Classroom adto naman an PowerPoint. So makikita lang niyo kung ano ang mga items na kailangan improve. Or research and improve. Hindi rin man kung talaga hikamot ma-approve. Magre-research lang ka mo ginano pag kung ano era mga proof. Okay, other questions? Sige, if waray, grupo ni Jericho, han thesis, pabilin, and iba, you can go.
Present, sir.
Sige, stop ko na presentation, stop ko na recording.